Hello, welcome to Alchemize Yourself Tarot. I'm going to be talking about why it's best to avoid ever telling somebody that you think they are your twin flame. And if you've already told somebody you think they are your twin flame, this is not to judge you or make you feel bad. But if you're thinking that a particular connection that you're in is a twin flame, I'd be very careful with putting that label on it. And I would avoid telling the other person, because what they may hear is pressure, projection, or some sort of expectation. And it just puts a lot of pressure on the connection to be a particular thing. You're literally turning it into a soul contract at that point because you're labeling it that. And it's also skipping the natural development of the connection. When you label something a twin flame too early, you're really jumping straight to the meaning instead of letting the connection prove itself. Real bonds are built through consistency, not labels. So saying it too soon can feel like you're trying to lock in a destiny before the other person has even decided how they feel. So it puts them in the role they didn't choose. This is where these runner-chaser dynamics can come from, because you might mean it spiritually, but to them it can land like now that they are responsible for something intense, fated, and emotionally loaded. That's a lot. Most people will instinctively pull back from that. So it will, like, even in most circumstances, people don't like to be pushed into a role. It can also come off as projection instead of a perception. So even if your feelings are real, labeling somebody like this can signal, I've already decided what you are to me. Healthy connections leave room for mutual discovery, not a one-sided meaning. Right? This is where you get into this unrequited love dynamic too, because you're already creating something that that person may or may not want. Right? And it also creates unconscious pressure. Now the connection has to live up to something mythical. So it puts a lot of pressure on yourself and that other person. The intense chemistry, the growth, the emotional mirroring, the spiritual purpose. That's a heavy standard. If things get messy, which they usually do, it can distort reality instead of helping you to navigate. It can also push you into passivity or over-attachment. The twin flame idea can quietly shift you into tolerating behavior you normally wouldn't. Yeah, that's a danger too, is that you start to place so much spiritual meaning on the connection that you forget to just look at how the natural dynamic is playing out. You tend to wait on that person. You tend to over-interpret their behavior. And see, that's where you're giving your power away over to these kinds of connections. And see, I believe, I look at the twin flame journey as like a personal journey. It's not necessarily about that other person. You're experiencing things in a dynamic, but it's still your personal journey. And by making them a part of it, you may project their need for growth outward instead of actually doing that inner work on yourself. That's another thing that can creep in. So instead of telling or thinking of somebody as your twin flame, you need to think of, do they show up consistently? Do they meet you emotionally? Do they move towards you without you having to chase them? So if the answer is no to those questions, it doesn't matter if you've put a label on it or not. It becomes a painful dynamic. So it's calling someone your twin flame too soon, or actually telling them this. It's often not about the truth. It's about trying to secure something that hasn't secured itself yet. It's like you're outpacing the actual pace of the relationship. That's where that chasing energy, that desperation comes from. And then it's like you start to fill in gaps in their behavior with fantasy, and you're assigning way too much depth to the connection. They're more than just a person. So you actually end up objectifying them a little bit, because they end up, you put them in this role, right? So, and that's the ego. That's one of the big problems I have with the whole twin flame concept, as well as the ego, how it's all about the ego wanting to prove something to itself. Puts a lot of pressure. And then you start to lose yourself. You start to overgive. You start to initiate everything. You're starting to try to think of their spiritual journey way too much. And that takes the focus away from your own spiritual journey. And then you just label that, oh, they're just running. Instead of them really not wanting the connection, you're trying to control it. So, yeah, I pulled some cards here about whether or not this connection is real or a projection. And I got, is it real or a projection? What are you feeling versus what is actually being shown? So with the Justice card and the Eight of Cups in the reverse, you are feeling this is just, that this is a soul contract, right? You want to actually legitimize a connection, because the Justice card represents truth, being right, balance, fairness. So you're feeling justified. So you're turning it into a soul contract that you are bound to, that you are unable to emotionally detach from. So you're feeling this need to walk away, and you can't, right? You've become very emotionally attached, because now your soul feels like it's under contract, that you are bound to this. Your heart desires change and fulfillment, but you are also feeling that you must fulfill this with this person. Now, this is where the soul contract narrative gets sticky, because your heart and mind are in dissonance, cognitive dissonance, because you feel there's obligation, but it's not fulfilled, right? There's no real fulfillment of it on an emotional level. So you're creating that personal soul agreement of twin flame, which basically ties you into that programming, right? Because the twin flame journey is, like I said earlier, it is a personal journey. It's an alchemical journey for yourself once you discover that. But when you project it too much outward, this is when you turn it into a very painful experience. So you're projecting onto this person, Eight of Wands, a lot of action. You are projecting a sense of urgency and pressure for this person to act. So, but you end up chasing or pursuing. You're wanting that instant gratification. But they're showing up very emotionally unavailable with the Four of Cups. Disinterested, they are distracted or absorbed in something else. This person's not really interested in taking action. So it's like there's that urgency. So then you end up taking all the action, right? You're feeling all that pressure to move something forward. But then it's not happening. So yeah, you're fiery, you're passionate, and it's like throwing a wet blanket on it, right? Water, it's like boom, it's like it immediately extinguishes all that passion or desire that you have. Because water can actually act as a repellent, like a repellent to that action. And the imbalance is needing to learn healthy detachment, learning that people need space to heal and be ready, and not everyone is aligned with our path or desires, right? Just because it's a soul desire for you to be on this journey doesn't mean that they will reciprocate that. The thing is you're feeling it with that Eight of Cups too. You're feeling that emotional disconnect in your soul, and you're realizing that this person really is not aligned with your path, but you've already created that contract. See, that's where the label gets, that's the problem with that label. And the truth you're avoiding is that this person could actually end up resenting you if you push them too hard, or you will build unnecessary conflict or tension by demanding them to fit onto your path. Because yeah, you'll feel this need to prove it to them. And then there'll be a resistance, because then the ego plays into it. It's not really about the natural emotions that are felt. So be aware of unnecessary drama by needing to prove you're right to this person. You may start fighting for the connection, and then it creates more and more resistance against you. So you end up expending your efforts. Be very aware of expending your efforts and energy in fighting it, this will actually end up being very counterproductive. That Eight of Pentacles in the reverse, you'll end up burning your energy out. What reclaiming your power is learning to work through your grief, learning to work through disappointment and rejection. This is difficult. 555. Learning to work through grief and your own pain, your own wounds, is going to be the biggest part of you accepting this. This is like the death of the ego, right? That challenge. You will struggle until you release it. And then it's like you have to let those tears fall. Because the apathy and the release will crack you open to what is true to you. So that's where the truth is just dealing with your own pain, your own childhood wounds, everything that's led you up to this point to cause you to cling to connections like this. If you continue this pattern, once you try to make this personal soul contract with somebody, not reciprocating it, you're going to be in a constant state of survival mode and pain, right? You're going to just be perpetuating a lot of pain for yourself. And that's why a lot of people get addicted to tarot readings and spirituality when they feel like they're on these journeys. So it ends up wasting your time and energy. It actually takes you away from your soul purpose, right? That's the irony of it. The twin flame journey with the label and the expectation actually pulls you further and further away from your person and more towards this need to make something work with this person. If you choose to release the label, you will conserve what you have left and be grateful for it, right? The Four of Pentacles, you're going to conserve your energy. You're going to pull way back. But you can't resist letting this go. And also, it's important to ground yourself in your own energy, not leak out your energy towards this person. It's really complicated because you will go through this spiritual journey and it will break you down, because it does break down the ego. It does serve its purpose. But it's all about learning to detach. Learning to not project the journey onto the person that you're dealing with. What is going on with this Justice? What's actually being shown to you? Longing, missing, regrets, suffering and silence. Yeah, there's a lot of suffering and silence. Well, and then Twin Flame shows up, Mirror Souls. This is an intense soul connection. Yeah, but it's creating this longing, this regret, this pain. And it is meant to transform you, right? Like the whole awakening and the awareness. This is all about individuation, unity of the masculine and feminine within you, balancing your own energy. And the mirror triggers you, right? This person rejecting you or pushing you away or running from you triggers all of that transformation. So it is a very powerful experience. And with that Eight of Wands, you're projecting out a lot of energy, hopeful, hope, optimism. You know, you're hopeful, but it's all about your hopes and desires, not necessarily theirs. And they're showing up as Four of Cups, like completely emotionally shut off. Bad news, negative outcome. You're sending the wrong message to them. They're getting it different. So it's weird. They will feel the opposite. This person could also be really hyper-focused on their own disappointments in life too, right? They're not really open to the connection many times when you are. You blow up their phone. It's just too much. So what is the imbalance is it's out of alignment. You're resisting your healing. It actually destroys your hope, right? You're getting bad news. You're sending them hope. They're sending you back bad news. Yeah, self-centered, fragile ego, divine feminine. This person could trigger you because you're wanting to dig deeper. You're wanting depth of emotion, and this person just doesn't have that. You're not shallow. You're connecting to deep levels, and you're intense, and they're very focused on themselves. They're just wanting to get what they're going to get out of it. But it can also be a matter of your own ego wanting to prove something. There's a fragility here. The truth you're avoiding is that this person is a player. They're playing games. They don't care. They have multiple lovers. They're not wanting to settle down. And they may even kind of get enjoyment out of destroying your ego or your self-worth. Some people kind of get off on that. And it sucks, right? Five of Cups. You're actually reclaiming your power by accepting the loss, right? By not trying to make it work, releasing it, right? Conflict, power struggle. You may even have to accept defeat. Because when somebody's heavily in their ego, and then it becomes a clash of egos at that point, because you're trying to uphold the label. And yeah, it just doesn't work. And it distracts you from your work too, right? If you continue the pattern, this person just becomes unfazed, not effective. They don't care that you're struggling to make something work. And you're not entitled to people caring, right? We're not entitled to people feeling something or wanting us. We're not entitled to that. So, oh gosh. There's going to be gossip about a burned bridge. There's no going back. You'll end up burning bridges. You'll end up creating drama. The trust, you won't trust in yourself anymore because you'll abandon yourself, right? The Three of Swords, Five of Cups, you'll start to just abandon yourself so much that you won't even trust. You'll actually destroy the connection because it'll be too intense. It'll turn into something too karmic. Ghost, commune with your guides. If this person's ghosted you, if you're not hearing from them, let them go. This is time for you to commune with your guides. Get in tune with what your energy, like get back into your own energy. Guardian angels and benevolent spirits and ancestors are seeking to connect with you. A message that will guide and soothe you is waiting to come through. The spirit world is often portrayed on TV as scary, like a horror film, but in real life, the spirit realm is always communicating with us. It's just that we're too distracted by our busy, digital, overstimulated lives to notice. When the ghost card appears, it's time to strengthen your connection to your intuitive gifts. Yeah, listen to your intuition. Especially when there's resistance in your connections. So, what other spirit message do we have here? Let's get a compassion message. And like I said in the beginning, don't feel bad if you've put the label. Pretty much everybody on this journey has labeled somebody. You know, if you're experiencing a mystical journey, awakening, things like that. It's just, it is part of the journey and it is part of the lesson. So don't be hard on yourself. Get back in tune with your internal compass, your guide, your internal guide. What do the guides want you to know at this time? Empathy. See another's perspective and demonstrate compassion for what you are experiencing. So have empathy. Put yourself in the other person's shoes. You wouldn't want somebody to pressure or label a spiritual connection or project that onto you. So it's important to have empathy and also compassion for yourself. Not lose yourself. And then we have parenting. Look at what is working and what needs to be modified. Are you on the same page? Some of you, I'm getting more like inner parenting. you know, are you on the same page with that inner child, that wounding, needing to have empathy and compassion for yourself? Understanding that we all play a part in how things unfold encourages accountability. So not placing blame, that's another thing, projecting blame, blaming yourself, blaming the other person. Sometimes relationships just don't work. And it's just a matter of incompatibility. So I will leave it there. Good luck, guys. I love you guys. And I hope this reading helped you. You know, we don't need to perpetuate fantasy. We need to be, you know, radically real with ourselves. And yeah, I love you guys. Take care. Bye.